Okay, so I'm going to talk about how to gank, how to properly gank, and what to do and what not to do when you're ganking. So first and foremost, well, first I'm going to get rid of minions here. Um, red buff is extremely important. You want red buff whenever you're ganking, whenever possible. It's not necessary. You don't have to have red buff to gank, but if you can have red buff to gank, you should. Uh, It recovers health, and that's not really the important part, but basic attacks burn and slow the target over several seconds. That's huge. So I'm going to show you the basics of what to do and what not to do when you're ganking. So let's assume a top lane gank here. So I'm going to come up here. I just finished my blue buff. We'll say I just killed it, and I'm going to look for a top lane gank. We'll say that my enemy top laner here is shoving in, and I want to get up there and alleviate some of that pressure. So what a lot of people will do is they'll just come straight out here and they'll walk up here and they'll like come through this bush and go to top lane and try to gank. Now there's a problem with that. The problem is that in most cases, in most games that you play, the enemy is going to have a ward right here, or right here, or right here. There's going to be a ward up here somewhere, basically, is the point. And so what can you do to avoid that? Well, there's two things you can do. First of all, you can come up through the lane is one option. The other option is to just have the little bit of the element of surprise. You're not going to have a total element of surprise, but you can get an element of surprise. So say there's a ward right here. That means the enemy can see you if you're coming from that direction. But if they're pushing up here, they're only going to have a limited reaction time. Okay, they're this far up in the lane. That means they only have so much reaction time before they can see you. And so what you can do instead of going up through the river this way, is instead of going up through the river this way, you can avoid that and go up through the river this way. And now even if they have a ward here, right now, they only have this much time before you're in the lane behind them. And that's a lot less time to react. That's going to be a lot more successful of a gank. And so what do you do from that point? What do I do once I'm in this bush? What a lot of people will do on a champion with a gap closer like Jarvan or Xin Zhao or any other champion with a gap closer is they see the enemy champion here, right? And what they're going to want to do is they want to get the drop on him. They want to get up here as fast as possible and get that gank off and get that kill. And they'll walk into the lane and they'll go boom and burn their gap closer immediately. And that's not what you want to do, because what's going to happen in that situation is one of two things. Either that enemy champion also has a gap closer, and you've burned your gap closer, so now they're just going to jet out of there as fast as they can and become this dummy. And now they're out of your range, and your gank didn't really mean anything. Yeah, you got a little bit of pressure or whatever, but you didn't really accomplish much. Or the other thing they're going to do is they're going to flash. And once again, they're just going to flash and become this dummy. And you're down here now because you burned your gap closer. And once again, they're out of range. You didn't really accomplish anything. You know, it's not really a great gank. And so what you want to do instead is, let's say you've blast coned into this bush and you're running up here. You have red buff. I've dropped my red buff. It wore off, whatever. But let's say you have red buff. You just want to walk up to this enemy champion and start attacking him. Don't burn your gap closer. Don't do anything, whatever. Your red buff slows them, so they can't move faster than you. You have boots, or maybe you don't have boots, but either way, they're slowed from the red buff and they can't get away from you. So that forces them to do one of two things. That forces them to either burn their gap closer and become this test dummy here, or flash and become this test dummy here. Well, that's fine. I have my red buff, so you're slow, first of all. And second of all, so he flashed right now. I still have my gap closer. I can still reach him. I can still get to him. So the moral of the story is, don't ever burn your gap closer first. Let them burn their gap closer first. So when you're coming out of this bush, don't gap close in and try to get on them super fast and get your gank off and be all flashy about it. Just walk out of this bush, apply your red buff, or if you don't have red buff, apply a slow or some form of CC. And one of the reasons that we build Chilling Smite here is walk out of this bush, apply your slow, and keep attacking them or whatever. Wait for them to burn their gap closer, becoming this test dummy here. And then go after them with your gap closer and continue attacking him, continue applying the slow, continue slowing them, whatever. Then they have to flash. They have to flash, otherwise they're going to die. And then they become this test dummy here. Well, I still have my flash, and I can keep attacking him, and I can keep attacking him, and that's a guaranteed kill. So the moral of the story is don't burn your gap closer, don't burn your flash. Let the enemy burn their flash first, let the enemy burn their gap closer first. Red buff and walking up and attacking should be enough to burn their gap closer. When they burn that closer, when they burn their gap closer, you burn your gap closer and continue applying the slow, continue applying the red buff, continue everything you can. Then they're going to flash, then you flash, and continue attacking them and continue attacking them and slowing them and doing whatever you can, and that's a guaranteed kill. And that's how you properly gank.